Hi, I'm Rachel. My sister didn't just ruin my baby shower, she orchestrated a calculated attack that left me sobbing in front of 50 guests while my custom nursery decorations burned in my backyard fire pit. When I found the evidence of what she'd really planned next, I called my husband in tears. What my sister didn't know was that my husband leads an elite Navy SEAL reconnaissance unit, and his team doesn't leave threats to military families unaddressed. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from, and if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. My name is Rachel Morrison, and I'm a pediatric nurse at St. Mary's Hospital in Virginia Beach. My husband Connor has been a Navy SEAL for 8 years, currently leading a specialized reconnaissance unit that deploys for classified missions I can't even know the details about. We'd been trying to have a baby for 3 years before I finally got pregnant at 29, and this little girl growing inside me felt like the miracle we'd been praying for. My younger sister Ashley has always been the dramatic one in our family. Where I chose a stable career helping sick children, Ashley bounced between modeling gigs, influencer attempts, and various business ventures that never quite took off. She lived in a converted garage apartment behind our parents' house in Norfolk, constantly borrowing money and creating chaos wherever she went. Despite our differences, I'd always tried to be the supportive older sister, helping her through breakups, job losses, and whatever crisis was currently consuming her life. Connor and I lived in a modest 2-bedroom house near the base. Nothing fancy, but we'd spent months carefully preparing the nursery for our daughter. I'd painted soft lavender walls by hand, and Connor had built custom shelving during his leave time between deployments. Every detail was chosen with love, from the vintage rocking chair I'd found at an estate sale to the hand-stitched mobile his grandmother had made for us. Ashley seemed genuinely excited about becoming an aunt when I first told her about the pregnancy. She immediately started sending me Pinterest boards full of baby shower ideas and insisted on helping plan the celebration. Since Connor would be returning from a 6-week training exercise just 2 days before the shower, I was grateful to have Ashley's help coordinating everything while managing my demanding work schedule at the hospital. Our relationship had always been complicated, but pregnancy seemed to bring out a protective, caring side of Ashley I hadn't seen since we were children. She spent hours helping me address invitations, called vendors to compare prices, and even offered to use her social media skills to create a beautiful digital invitation that impressed all my friends. For the first time in years, I felt like we were truly acting like sisters, instead of just tolerating each other out of family obligation. The first strange incident happened during my 7th month, when Ashley volunteered to pick up the custom cake I'd ordered from a specialty bakery in Norfolk. I'd chosen a simple design, white buttercream with delicate sugar flowers in shades of pink and lavender. When Ashley returned with the cake, something seemed off about her demeanor, but the cake looked perfect, so I didn't question it. It wasn't until later that evening when I was showing Connor photos of the cake that he pointed out something I'd missed. "Honey, didn't you say you ordered sugar flowers? These look like real ones." He was right. The flowers were fresh peonies and roses. Beautiful, but completely wrong for what I'd requested and paid for. When I called the bakery the next morning, the owner seemed confused. "Mrs. Morrison, your sister specifically requested the change to fresh flowers and paid the additional fee herself. She said you'd decided the sugar flowers looked too artificial for photographs." I hadn't requested any changes, and Ashley had never mentioned paying extra fees. When I asked her about it, she laughed it off. "Rachel, the fresh flowers look so much better. You'll thank me when you see how gorgeous the photos turn out. I just wanted everything to be perfect for you." The explanation seemed reasonable, even thoughtful, but something about the way she'd made such a significant change without consulting me first left me feeling unsettled. Connor noticed my discomfort and gently suggested that maybe Ashley was just overly invested in making the shower special, but perhaps I should be clearer about my preferences going forward. The second incident occurred 2 weeks later when I discovered that Ashley had completely changed the venue for the shower without telling me. I'd originally booked the community center at Connor's base, which offered military family discounts and had a beautiful view of the water. When I called to confirm details, they had no record of my reservation. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Morrison, but your sister called last week and canceled your booking. She said you'd found a better location and wouldn't be needing our services." Ashley had rebooked the shower at an expensive event hall in downtown Norfolk, one that cost 3 times what I budgeted. When I confronted her, she seemed genuinely hurt by my reaction. "Rachel, the base community center is so plain and institutional. This new venue has crystal chandeliers and marble floors. Don't you want your baby shower to be elegant? I already put down the deposit with my credit card because I knew you'd love it once you saw it." She had taken photos of the new venue, and it was undeniably beautiful, but the cost was far beyond what Connor and I could afford on our military salary. Ashley insisted the upgrade was her gift to me, but accepting such an expensive gesture from someone who was constantly borrowing money from our parents felt wrong. Connor's response was more direct. "Rachel, I don't like that she's making major decisions about our celebration without consulting us. And I definitely don't like that she's spending money she doesn't have on things we didn't ask for."
But Ashley's excitement seemed so genuine, and she'd already put down a non-refundable deposit. Canceling would mean losing her money and scrambling to find another venue just 3 weeks before the shower. Against Connor's better judgment, I agreed to keep the new location, though the whole situation left me feeling like I was losing control of my own celebration. My mother, Linda, seemed oblivious to any problems. She was thrilled that Ashley was finally showing maturity and responsibility by taking charge of planning such an important family event. "Rachel, honey, you should be grateful that Ashley is putting so much effort into making this special for you. She's really grown up, don't you think?" My father, Robert, was less enthusiastic but unwilling to get involved in what he called women's party planning. He'd made it clear that his role was limited to showing up, eating cake, and admiring his future granddaughter. As long as Ashley wasn't asking him for money, he was content to let her handle the details. Connor's mother, Patricia, had flown in from Ohio to help with final preparations and immediately noticed the tension. "Rachel, sweetheart, you seem stressed about this shower. Shouldn't planning a celebration be fun?" When I explained about the venue change and cake modifications, she frowned thoughtfully. "In my experience, when someone insists on changing your plans for your own good, they're usually serving their own interests, not yours. Maybe you should have a frank conversation with Ashley about boundaries." But having that conversation felt impossible with the shower just weeks away. Ashley had taken on so many responsibilities that backing out now would mean starting over completely. She'd coordinated with caterers, organized decorations, managed the guest list, and even arranged for a photographer friend to document the event. Unraveling her contributions at this point would be more stressful than just going along with her vision. Connor was preparing for another short deployment that would take him away for the final week of planning, and I was dealing with increasingly difficult shifts at the hospital as my pregnancy advanced. Ashley's help, however controlling it felt, was also genuinely needed. I convinced myself that her overbearing behavior came from excitement about becoming an aunt and a desire to give me something beautiful during a time when Connor's military obligations meant he couldn't be as involved as either of us would have liked. The night before Connor left for his final pre-shower deployment, he sat me down for a serious conversation. "Rachel, I know you want to see the best in Ashley, but I need you to promise me something. If anything feels wrong while I'm gone, anything at all, you'll call me immediately. I can get emergency leave if necessary." I promised, but privately I thought he was being overprotective. Ashley was dramatic and sometimes inconsiderate, but she was still my sister. The idea that she might deliberately try to hurt me or sabotage something as important as my baby shower seemed impossible. She'd invested too much time and energy into planning the event for her motives to be anything other than genuine love and excitement. Looking back now, I realized that both Connor and his mother had recognized warning signs that I was too close to see. Ashley's pattern of making unilateral decisions, her insistence that her changes were improvements I should be grateful for, and her emotional manipulation when I questioned her choices were all red flags I'd been trained by years of family dynamics to ignore. But at 31 weeks pregnant, exhausted from work and missing my husband, I chose to trust that my sister had my best interests at heart. That decision would prove to be one of the biggest mistakes of my life. With Connor deployed for his final training exercise, I threw myself into work at the pediatric ward while Ashley handled the remaining shower preparations. She'd insisted on taking complete control during this last week, claiming it would be her surprise gift to me. Every time I tried to check on details, she'd wave me off with promises that everything was absolutely perfect and that I should just focus on resting. My colleague Sarah, a fellow nurse who'd become a close friend over our 3 years working together, was the first to notice something concerning. She'd volunteered to help address thank you cards after the shower and asked Ashley for the guest list to cross-reference addresses. "Rachel, your sister gave me a completely different list than what you showed me last month. She added about 15 people I've never heard of, and she removed several of your friends from the hospital. When I asked her about it, she said you'd decided you wanted a more intimate celebration. I hadn't decided anything of the sort. Some of the people Ashley had removed were my closest friends, women who'd supported me through infertility struggles and celebrated with me when I finally got pregnant. When I checked the list myself, I discovered she'd also removed Connor's sister, Jessica, who'd specifically requested time off work to attend, and my college roommate, Maria, who was driving down from D.C. "Ashley, why isn't Jessica on the list?" I asked when I called her that evening. "She already bought her plane ticket." "Oh, I thought it would be awkward having Connor's family there when he can't be there himself. And honestly, some of your hospital friends don't really fit the vibe I'm going for. This is going to be elegant and sophisticated, not just a casual get-together." The casual dismissal of people I cared about as not fitting her vibe sent a chill down my spine. When I insisted that Jessica and my other friends be included, Ashley sighed dramatically. "Rachel, you're 8 months pregnant and exhausted. You're not thinking clearly about what will actually make for a good event. Trust me to handle the social dynamics. I know what I'm doing."
A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. But when I called Jessica directly, I learned something that made my stomach drop. "Rachel, I never got an invitation. I was waiting for details about timing so I could finalize my travel plans. Are you sure Ashley sent it?" Ashley had never sent Jessica an invitation at all. When confronted, she claimed it must have gotten lost in the mail, but her defensiveness suggested otherwise. More concerning was her reaction when I insisted on personally calling everyone who'd been removed from the list. "If you're going to micromanage everything I've worked so hard on, maybe you should just plan your own shower," she snapped. The first time I'd heard genuine anger in her voice. "I've spent weeks creating something beautiful for you, and all you do is criticize and second-guess me." Dr. Patricia Williams, Connor's mother, arrived 2 days later and immediately sensed the tension. She'd planned to stay in our guest room and help with final preparations, but Ashley had somehow neglected to mention Patricia's visit when making her arrangements. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Morrison, but I've already confirmed the final head count with the caterers. Adding another person at this point would throw off all the planning." Patricia had been planning to attend for months, and Ashley knew it. The deliberate exclusion of Connor's mother from the head count felt like a direct insult to our family. When I pointed this out, Ashley's response was telling. "I just think it's important that this celebration focuses on you and the people who really understand what you've been through.
Connor's family is lovely, but they haven't been part of your journey the way your real family has. The implication that Connor's family wasn't real family revealed something ugly in Ashley's thinking that I'd never noticed before. Patricia, who'd been nothing but kind and supportive throughout my pregnancy, didn't deserve to be treated like an outsider at her own granddaughter celebration. My friend Maria called me directly after receiving a confusing message from Ashley about the shower being postponed due to family circumstances. When I assured her the shower was still happening as planned, Maria seemed hesitant to attend. Rachel, I don't want to cause problems, but your sister made it sound like there was some kind of emergency and that you specifically didn't want work friends there during a difficult time. She said you'd explain everything later. Ashley had been systematically disinviting people without telling me, using fabricated stories about family emergencies and my supposed wishes to keep the guest list limited to essential people only. When I demanded an explanation, she broke down in tears. I was just trying to protect you from having to entertain so many people when you're already overwhelmed. Rachel, you've been so stressed lately, and I thought a smaller, more intimate gathering would be better for you and the baby. Her tears seemed genuine, and her explanation almost sounded reasonable, but the pattern of deception was undeniable. She'd made major decisions about my celebration while actively lying to me about what she was doing. More troubling was her assumption that she knew better than I did about what I needed during this important time. Connor's weekly call from his training location brought everything into focus. When I explained what had been happening, the silence on the other end of the line stretched so long I thought we'd lost connection. He said, when he finally spoke, his voice carrying the controlled tension I recognized from serious conversations about his missions. Rachel, listen to me carefully. Someone who lies to you about guest lists and deceives your friends isn't planning a celebration for you. They're planning something for themselves. I need you to start documenting everything she's doing. Connor, you're being paranoid. She's just overly controlling, not malicious. Sweetheart, I've seen enough operations to recognize when someone is isolating a target from their support network. Ashley is systematically removing every person who might question what she's doing or support you if something goes wrong. His assessment felt extreme, but I couldn't deny the pattern he was describing. Ashley had removed my closest friends, Connor's family, and anyone who might have an independent relationship with me that didn't go through her. The people she'd added to the list were mostly her friends or distant relatives who barely knew me. That night, I made a list of everything that had changed from my original shower plans. The venue, the cake, the guest list, the timing, even the decorations, which Ashley had switched from my chosen soft pastels to bold jewel tones that she claimed would be more photogenic. Looking at it all written down, I realized that virtually nothing remained of what Connor and I had originally planned. When I tried to discuss this with my mother, her response was dismissive. Rachel, honey, Ashley has put so much work into making this special for you. You're being ungrateful and hormonal. Just let her give you this gift.
But Patricia's reaction was very different. Rachel, in my 40 years of marriage to a military man, I've learned to trust my instincts about people who don't have our family's best interests at heart. Ashley's behavior isn't about giving you a gift. It's about taking control of your moment and making it about her. The final incident that week removed any doubt about Ashley's true motivations. I'd asked her to pick up the custom baby blanket I'd ordered from a local artisan, a soft cotton piece embroidered with our daughter's name, Sophia Grace, and her expected due date. It was going to be the centerpiece of the gift display, representing all the love and anticipation we'd put into preparing for her arrival. When Ashley returned, she seemed unusually excited about the blanket, insisting I not look at it until the shower. It's going to be such a beautiful surprise, Rachel. Everyone is going to be so impressed. But Sarah, who'd stopped by to drop off a gift, accidentally saw the blanket when Ashley was arranging it with other presents. Her expression when she pulled me aside was deeply concerned. Rachel, I don't know how to tell you this, but the blanket doesn't say Sophia Grace. It says Ashley's Angel in the same embroidered script. When I asked your sister about it, she said there must have been a mistake at the shop. There had been no mistake. When I called the artisan directly, she confirmed that Ashley had specifically requested the name change, claiming I'd decided to honor my sister's support during the pregnancy by incorporating her name into the design. Your sister seemed so touched by the gesture, the artisan said. She even teared up when she explained how much it would mean to her to have her name on the baby's special blanket. Ashley had deliberately altered the most personal item at my baby shower to center herself instead of my daughter. When I confronted her, she didn't even attempt to deny it. Rachel, I've put my heart and soul into making this shower perfect for you. Having my name on the blanket was just a small way to remember how much I love you and our baby. After everything I've done, don't you think I deserve some recognition? The possessive way she referred to Sophia as our baby, and her belief that she deserved recognition at my child's celebration, revealed the depth of her delusion. This wasn't about supporting me or celebrating my daughter. This was about Ashley creating a narrative where she was the central figure in our family's most important moments. Connor was right. Ashley wasn't planning a baby shower for me. She was staging some kind of elaborate performance where she would be the star, and my pregnancy was just the backdrop for her moment of recognition and control. Connor returned from his training exercise at 3 a.m, 2 days before the shower. I'd fallen asleep on the couch waiting for him, surrounded by lists of last-minute concerns about Ashley's behavior. He found me there and gently carried me to bed, but not before I noticed him photographing the lists I'd made, documenting all the changes and deceptions. "Why are you taking pictures of my notes?" I asked groggily. "Just keeping records, sweetheart. Go back to sleep." The morning of the shower dawned gray and humid, typical for Virginia Beach in late September. I woke up feeling anxious in a way that had nothing to do with normal pre-party nerves. Connor was already awake, sitting on the edge of the bed with his phone, typing what looked like a detailed message. "Who are you texting this early?" I asked, checking the time. It was barely 6 a.m. "Just coordinating some logistics with the team. Nothing for you to worry about." Ashley arrived at 8 a.m. with 3 women I'd never met, all carrying professional-looking equipment bags. She introduced them as her event coordination team, a photographer, a social media specialist, and someone she called an experience designer, whatever that meant. "Rachel, I wanted to surprise you with professional documentation of today. This is going to be featured on my new lifestyle blog, and I want everything to be absolutely perfect." This was the first I'd heard of any lifestyle blog, and the idea of my intimate baby shower being turned into content for Ashley's latest venture made my skin crawl. When I tried to object, she cut me off. "Sweetie, you're going to thank me when you see how gorgeous these photos turn out. This is going to be the most Instagram-worthy baby shower Virginia Beach has ever seen." Connell emerged from the bedroom, still in his workout clothes, and immediately assessed the strangers now occupying our living room. His expression grew cold as he took in their professional equipment and Ashley's obvious excitement about filming our personal celebration. "Ashley, we never agreed to having our private family event turned into social media content," he said firmly. "Oh, Connor, don't be such a control freak," Ashley laughed, but there was an edge to her voice. "This is about celebrating Rachel and the baby. You'll barely even notice the cameras." "I notice everything," Connor replied, his voice carrying the quiet authority I'd learned meant he was fully focused. "And I'm not comfortable with strangers filming my pregnant wife and our home."
The tension in the room was immediate and palpable. Ashley's team shifted uncomfortably while she stared at Connor with obvious frustration. This was clearly not how she'd expected the morning to begin. "Fine," she said after a long moment. "We'll just do some casual photos then. Nothing too formal." But as the morning progressed, it became clear that Ashley had no intention of keeping things casual. Her photographer was positioned to capture every moment, her social media specialist was constantly checking angles and lighting, and the experience designer was rearranging our furniture to create better content opportunities. The first guests arrived at noon, and I immediately noticed something was wrong. Instead of the intimate gathering of close friends and family I'd expected, the house quickly filled with people I barely knew. Ashley's friends, her coworkers, several women who seemed to be other lifestyle bloggers, and a handful of people who were openly treating the event like a networking opportunity rather than a celebration. Patricia pulled me aside in the kitchen, her expression troubled. "Rachel, dear, where are your friends from the hospital? And where's Jessica? I thought she was driving me down for this." Before I could answer, Ashley appeared, with her photographer in tow. "Patricia, we're doing a 4-generation photo series for the blog. I need you to stand over here with Mom and Rachel." "What blog?" Patricia asked, echoing my own confusion. "Ashley's apparently documenting today for her social media," I explained, feeling increasingly uncomfortable with how public my private celebration had become. The gift opening turned into a full production, with Ashley directing every moment like she was filming a commercial. She positioned herself prominently in every shot, often stepping between me and the camera to help me with presents or to offer commentary about each gift. When I opened the altered baby blanket with Ashley's angel embroidered on it, she made sure the photographer captured her emotional reaction rather than mine. "This is so meaningful," she announced to the room, tears streaming down her face. "Rachel wanted to honor our sisterly bond by including my name on Sophia's special blanket. It just shows how much our relationship means to her." The room full of strangers cooed appreciatively, but I saw Sarah and Patricia exchange concerned glances. They both knew I would never have made such a choice, and Ashley's performance was clearly for the benefit of her cameras rather than genuine emotion. The breaking point came when Ashley unveiled what she called her surprise centerpiece, a professional cake that was nothing like what I'd ordered. Instead of the simple white buttercream design with fresh flowers, this was an elaborate 3-tier creation covered in gold leaf and topped with a large sugar sculpture that read, "Ashley's Baby Shower" in flowing script. "Surprise!" Ashley exclaimed, gesturing to the photographers who were capturing every moment. "I know you wanted something simple, but I thought you deserved something truly special. And look, I even had them add my name since I planned everything." The cake was beautiful, expensive, and completely wrong. But more than that, Ashley had literally put her own name on my baby shower cake. She'd taken what should have been a celebration of my pregnancy and turned it into a showcase for herself. Connor appeared at my side, his presence immediately calming despite the chaos around us. "How are you feeling?" he asked quietly. "Like I'm watching someone else's party," I admitted. "That's because you are." Before I could ask what he meant, Ashley clinked a spoon against her champagne glass to get everyone's attention. "I want to make a special toast," she announced, positioning herself in front of the photographer. "Most of you know how hard this pregnancy has been for Rachel. The infertility struggles, the high-risk complications, the stress of Connor being deployed so much." She paused dramatically, dabbing at her eyes. "Through it all, I've been Rachel's rock. I've held her when she cried, supported her through every doctor's appointment, and basically became like a second mother to this baby." My breath caught in my throat. Ashley was rewriting history in front of a room of strangers, creating a narrative where she was the hero of my pregnancy story. The worst part was that her audience was eating it up, several people wiping away tears at her touching tribute to sisterly devotion. So when it came time to plan the shower, I knew it had to be perfect. Every detail, every moment, every photo needed to capture how much this baby is loved, not just by her parents, but by her devoted aunt, who's going to be like a second mother to her. Connor's hand found mine and squeezed tight. I could feel his tension as Ashley continued her performance, each word making it clearer that she saw my daughter not as my child, but as some kind of shared project where she would play a starring role. "Rachel has always been the quiet sister, the one who needs someone stronger to help her through life's challenges," Ashley continued, her voice carrying across the room with practiced emotion. "That's why I've taken charge of today, and why I'll continue to be the strong support system this family needs as we welcome little Sophia into the world." The applause that followed felt like a slap in the face. Ashley had just told a room full of people that I was too weak to handle my own life, that she was the real strength in our family, and that my daughter would need her as a second mother because I presumably wasn't enough on my own. But the worst was yet to come.
As guests began to leave, Ashley's photographer approached me with a tablet showing dozens of photos from the day. In every single image, Ashley had positioned herself as the central figure. Photos of me opening gifts showed Ashley's reactions instead of mine. Pictures of the cake featured Ashley cutting it while I stood awkwardly to the side. Even candid shots of conversations had been framed to highlight Ashley's interactions with guests rather than my own. "We got some beautiful content today," the photographer said enthusiastically. "Ashley's going to have amazing material for her lifestyle brand launch." "Lifestyle brand launch?" I repeated. "Oh, didn't she tell you? Today was the launch event for her new blog about being a supportive sister and future aunt. She's positioning herself as an expert on family dynamics and pregnancy support. This shower is going to be her flagship content." My baby shower hadn't been a celebration of my pregnancy. It had been a business launch event for Ashley's latest venture, with my personal milestone serving as nothing more than content for her social media empire. Connor found me in the nursery an hour later, sitting in the rocking chair and staring at the wall. The house was finally quiet, Ashley and her team having left to edit the amazing footage they'd captured. "She used me," I said when he sat down on the floor beside the chair. "She used my pregnancy, my baby shower, my friends and family, all as props for her social media business." "I know," Connor said quietly, "and that's not all she's been doing." He showed me his phone, where he'd been tracking Ashley's social media activity throughout the day. She'd been posting live updates from the shower, calling it the most meaningful day of my life, and describing herself as basically a mom already to my unborn daughter. But the posts that made my blood run cold were the ones about the future. Ashley had shared detailed plans about her role in Sophia's life, including her intention to be present for the birth, to help guide Rachel through the challenges of new motherhood, and to document every milestone for her blog. She'd turned my pregnancy into her personal brand, and she was planning to do the same with my daughter's entire childhood. "Connor, she's not going to stop," I realized with growing horror. "This isn't just about one baby shower. She's planning to take over my whole life as a mother." "I know," he said again, and this time his voice carried the cold determination I'd heard when he talked about eliminating threats to national security. "But don't worry, sweetheart. She's about to learn what happens when you target a SEAL's family." Connor spent the next morning on his laptop in our home office, making a series of phone calls I wasn't supposed to overhear. Through the closed door, I caught fragments of military terminology, asset assessment, threat level evaluation, and operational security. When I brought him coffee, I noticed multiple browser windows open showing Ashley's social media profiles, along with what looked like surveillance software I didn't recognize. "Connor, what exactly are you doing?" I asked, settling my 8-month pregnant body into the chair across from his desk. "Reconnaissance," he replied without looking up at his screen. "Your sister has been building a digital footprint around her involvement in our family for months. I need to understand the full scope of what we're dealing with." He turned his laptop toward me, showing Ashley's Instagram account. I'd rarely checked her social media, but what I saw made my stomach drop. For the past 6 months, she'd been posting constantly about my pregnancy, referring to herself as Aunt Ashley, and describing her role in preparing for our baby in language that made it sound like she was co-parenting with Connor and me. "Look at the timeline," Connor said, scrolling through months of posts. "She started this narrative before you even told the family about the pregnancy. Somehow, she knew before the rest of us did." He was right. Ashley's first post about becoming an aunt was dated 3 weeks before Connor and I had made our announcement. The caption read, "So excited to share that I'm going to be the most devoted aunt ever. Can't wait to help raise this precious little one." "How did she know before we told anyone?" I asked, though a sinking feeling suggested I already knew the answer. Connor pulled up our phone records on another window. "She's been accessing your medical information somehow. Look at these dates. Every time you had a doctor's appointment, she posted something about the pregnancy within hours." The evidence was undeniable. Ashley had been tracking my medical appointments and somehow obtaining information about my pregnancy that she shouldn't have had access to. But the posts revealed something even more disturbing. She'd been planning her takeover of my motherhood experience from the very beginning. My friend Sarah arrived that afternoon with a box of items she'd forgotten to bring to the shower. but her real purpose became clear when she pulled Connor aside for a private conversation in the kitchen. "Connor, I need to tell you something about yesterday," she said, glancing toward the living room where I was resting. "Ashley approached several of us about signing some kind of consent forms for her photography and social media use. She said Rachel had requested it, but something felt off." Connor's expression darkened. "What kind of consent forms?" "Permission to use our images and any conversations about Rachel's pregnancy in her blog and social media content. She also asked us to sign something giving her permission to share details about Rachel's medical condition and birthing plans. When I refused, she got really aggressive about it." Sarah showed Connor photos she'd taken of the forms on her phone. The documents weren't just about photography rights. They were comprehensive releases that would have given Ashley legal permission to share intimate details about my pregnancy, birth, and postpartum experience as content for her lifestyle brand. She tried to get Patricia to sign something specifically about grandparents' perspectives on modern pregnancy support. When Patricia asked to read it first, Ashley snatched it back and said it wasn't important. Connor immediately called his mother, who confirmed that Ashley had been pushing various forms throughout the shower, claiming they were just standard photography releases that everyone needed to sign for insurance purposes. "Connor, I'm a retired teacher. I know what real permission slips look like. Those forms were designed to give Ashley legal rights to exploit Rachel's pregnancy for commercial purposes. The language was very specific about ongoing access to the baby after birth." She had refused to sign anything, but the fact that Ashley had prepared legal documents to monetize my pregnancy and my daughter's early life revealed a level of premeditation that was truly frightening. That evening, Connor's teammate Derek stopped by with his wife Jennifer, both still in their dress uniforms from a base ceremony. What seemed like a casual social visit quickly revealed its true purpose when Derek casually mentioned running into Ashley at a coffee shop near the base. "She seemed really interested in our security protocols," Derek said, accepting a beer from Connor. "Asked a lot of questions about base access, visitor procedures, and how military families handled childcare during deployments." Jennifer, who worked as a family liaison coordinator for military spouses, was more direct about her concerns. "Rachel, Ashley specifically asked me about base hospital procedures for military dependents. She wanted to know about visitor policies for labor and delivery, who has access to medical information, and whether non-family members can be listed as emergency contacts." The implication was clear. Ashley had been researching how to insert herself into my birthing experience and gain access to military medical facilities where Connor's security clearance might normally protect our privacy. She also asked about legal guardianship procedures for military children. What happens if both parents are deployed? Emergency custody situations, that kind of thing. When I asked why she needed that information, she said she wanted to be prepared to help her sister's family during challenging times. Connor and Derek exchanged a look that I'd learned meant they were communicating in the wordless way of military personnel who'd worked together in dangerous situations. "Derek, I need a favor. Can you have the base security office run a background check on Ashley Torres? And I need someone to monitor her social media activity for any posts about military families or base locations." "Already on it," Derek replied. Jennifer flagged her questions as potentially concerning when they happened. "We've been keeping an eye on her digital footprint since yesterday." The coordination between Connor and his team was happening so smoothly that I realized they'd been discussing Ashley's behavior long before I'd recognized it as a serious threat. While I'd been trying to manage family dynamics and pregnancy hormones, Connor had been treating my sister like a potential security risk to a military family. Dr. Elizabeth Harper, my obstetrician, called that evening with disturbing news. Someone had been calling her office repeatedly, claiming to be my designated birth support person and requesting detailed information about my delivery schedule and medical plans. "Mrs. Morrison, I want to confirm that you haven't authorized anyone other than your husband to receive medical information about your pregnancy." "Absolutely not. Why?" "Your sister has called my office 6 times this week, claiming she needs delivery details to coordinate family support.
She's also requested copies of your birth plan and asked to be added to your approved visitor list for labor and delivery.
Ashley had been trying to gain medical access to my birthing experience without my knowledge or consent. When Dr. Harper refused to provide information, Ashley had become increasingly aggressive, finally claiming that I was too emotionally unstable from pregnancy hormones to make decisions about my own medical care. She suggested that, as your primary support system, she should be granted decision-making authority if complications arise during delivery. Dr. Harper explained. Mrs. Morrison, I need you to know that someone making these kinds of demands raises red flags about potential abuse situations. Connor took the phone to speak with Dr. Harper directly, and I could hear his controlled fury as he explained the situation. By the end of the conversation, Ashley had been permanently banned from receiving any information about my medical care, and additional security measures had been put in place to protect my privacy. That night, as I lay in bed trying to process everything we'd learned, Connor showed me the comprehensive file he'd been building throughout the day. Screenshots of Ashley's social media posts, documented attempts to access my medical information, copies of the consent forms she'd tried to get my friends to sign, and evidence of her research into military family vulnerabilities. This isn't random behavior or sister jealousy, Connor said, his voice carrying the analytical tone he used for mission briefings. This is a systematic campaign to establish legal and social control over our family. She's been planning this for months, maybe longer. The most disturbing evidence was a series of Ashley's private messages to her friends, which Derek's security contacts had obtained through legitimate surveillance channels. In them, Ashley described detailed fantasies about being present for Sophia's birth, taking co-parenting responsibilities while Connor was deployed, and eventually gaining some form of legal custody if Connor and I proved to be unfit parents. She's not planning to be a supportive aunt, Connor explained grimly. She's planning to replace you as Sophia's primary caregiver. Every action she's taken has been designed to position herself as the responsible adult in this family, while portraying you as incompetent and unstable. Looking at the evidence laid out systematically, I could see the pattern I'd been too close to recognize. Ashley hadn't been helping with my pregnancy. She'd been building a case for why she should have control over my daughter. What do we do now? I asked, feeling overwhelmed by the scope of her deception. Now we make sure she understands that targeting a SEAL's family was the biggest mistake of her life, Connor replied, and for the first time since this began, I felt protected rather than hunted. The first phase of Connor's operation began at dawn, 3 days after the shower. I woke to find him already dressed in his tactical gear, speaking quietly into his headset while reviewing what looked like architecture blueprints on his laptop. "Target is mobile," I heard him say. "Confirm all surveillance teams are in position." "Connor, what's happening?" I asked, struggling to sit up with my growing belly. "Ashley had made her next move," he replied, helping me to the kitchen where coffee was already brewing. "She filed a petition with social services yesterday afternoon claiming you're experiencing severe postpartum depression and requesting emergency intervention." My blood ran cold. "But I haven't even given birth yet." "She's claiming you've been showing signs of prenatal depression that will escalate after delivery, making you a danger to the baby. She submitted your medical records as evidence, along with testimony from witnesses who allegedly observed your unstable behavior at the shower." Connor showed me the official documents on his tablet. Ashley had somehow obtained detailed information about my pregnancy complications, my past struggles with infertility, and even confidential therapy sessions I had attended 2 years ago during Connor's deployment to Afghanistan. She'd twisted every piece of personal information into evidence that I was mentally unfit to care for a newborn. How did she get my therapy records? Those are sealed medical files. We're still investigating that, but Jennifer thinks Ashley may have connections inside the county health system. The important thing is that she's forced our hand. We can't wait any longer to respond. The doorbell rang at exactly 8 a.m. Through the window, I could see a woman in a business suit carrying an official-looking briefcase. Connor answered the door while I listened from the kitchen, my heart pounding as I heard the visitor identify herself as Margaret Webb from Child Protective Services.
Mrs. Morrison, I'm here to conduct a wellness check based on a report we received about concerns for an unborn child's safety, the social worker explained when Connor brought her into the living room. Connor's response was measured but firm. Miss Webb, before we proceed, I need to inform you that we've documented systematic harassment against my family by the person who filed this report. We have evidence that suggests this complaint is malicious and based on illegally obtained information.
Margaret Webb looked surprised. Mr. Morrison, I'm required to investigate all reports regardless of their source. However, if you have evidence of harassment, that would certainly be relevant to my assessment. Connor had prepared for this moment. He presented a comprehensive folder containing screenshots of Ashley's social media posts, documentation of her attempts to access my medical records, copies of the consent forms she tried to get my friends to sign, and witness statements from the baby shower guests who'd observed her concerning behavior. Miss Webb, my sister-in-law has been conducting a months-long campaign to position herself as a co-parent to our unborn child, Connor explained with military precision. She's attempted to gain legal and medical authority over my wife and daughter through deception and manipulation. This CPS report is the next phase of that campaign. As Margaret Webb reviewed the evidence, her expression grew increasingly troubled. She asked to speak with me privately, and I found myself explaining the whole nightmare while trying not to sound defensive or paranoid. Mrs. Morrison, the evidence your husband has presented raises serious concerns about the motivation behind this report, she said after hearing my account. However, I still need to complete my assessment to close the case properly. Her evaluation took 2 hours and included conversations with Connor, me, and phone calls to Dr. Harper and my therapist. By the end, Margaret Webb seemed convinced that Ashley's report was malicious harassment rather than legitimate concern. I'll be recommending that this case be closed with no action required, she told us before leaving. However, I should warn you that if additional reports are filed, we'll be required to investigate those as well. Connor's phone buzzed with a text message as soon as Margaret Webb's car pulled away. She's escalating, he said after reading it. Derek's team just observed Ashley meeting with someone at the county courthouse. She's not backing down. The second phase of Ashley's attack came that afternoon in the form of a phone call from Patricia, Connor's mother. She was crying, which I'd never heard before in all the years I'd known her. "Rachel, honey, I don't know how to tell you this," she said between sobs. "Ashley came to my hotel this morning with some kind of legal document. She's claiming that Connor is psychologically dangerous due to his military service and that you need protection from him." Ashley had filed a restraining order petition against Connor, claiming he'd threatened her during the shower and that his combat-related psychological issues made him a danger to me and the baby. She'd submitted doctored screenshots of text messages allegedly from Connor, along with claims that his military training made him prone to violence against family members. The worst part is that she brought 2 women with her who claimed to be witnesses. They swore they heard Connor threaten Ashley at the baby shower. "Rachel, I was there the whole time, and nothing like that happened." Connor's response was immediate and decisive. He made 3 phone calls in rapid succession, one to his commanding officer, one to the base legal affairs office, and one to Derek. "Time for phase 2, he said after ending the calls. "Ashley wants to play legal warfare against a military family. She's about to learn what happens when you bring civilian tactics to a military operation." Within an hour, Connor's team had mobilized in ways I'd never witnessed outside of his deployment preparations. Derek arrived with Lieutenant Commander Sarah Martinez, the base's legal affairs officer, along with Chief Petty Officer Michael Torres, who specialized in counterintelligence operations. "Mrs. Morrison, we've reviewed the restraining order petition and identified multiple indicators of falsified evidence. The text message screenshots contain metadata inconsistencies that prove they've been digitally manipulated." Chief Torres had been busy investigating Ashley's background using military intelligence resources. What he'd discovered was far more extensive than any of us had imagined. "Your sister has been running similar operations against other military families across 3 different states. We've identified at least 4 other cases where she's inserted herself into family situations during vulnerable times, pregnancies, deployments, family crises, and then attempted to gain legal or financial access."
The evidence was staggering. Ashley had a pattern of targeting military wives during their husbands' deployments, offering support and assistance while secretly gathering information to use against them later. In 2 previous cases, she'd successfully gained temporary custody of children by convincing courts that the mothers were unfit and the fathers were unavailable due to military service. This is her business model, Chief Torres explained grimly. She identifies vulnerable military families, embeds herself in their lives during crisis periods, then uses the system against them to gain legal and financial control. She's been doing this for at least 3 years. Connor's expression had gone completely cold, the look I'd seen in photos from his combat deployments. "What's the operational plan?" Lieutenant Commander Martinez replied. "Simultaneous counterstrikes across multiple fronts, legal, financial, and social media warfare designed to dismantle her entire operation while protecting your family."
Derek pulled up surveillance footage on his laptop showing Ashley's activities over the past week. She'd been meeting with lawyers, visiting government offices, and conducting what appeared to be reconnaissance on our neighborhood and Connor's base. She's been photographing your house, documenting Connor's schedule, and tracking your medical appointments, Derek explained. She's also been building relationships with other military wives in your area, probably looking for her next targets. But the most disturbing discovery came when Chief Torres accessed Ashley's financial records through legitimate military intelligence channels. She'd been receiving payments from law firms that specialized in custody disputes, along with fees from something called Family Intervention Services that appeared to be a front company for exploiting vulnerable families. "She's not just targeting your family for personal reasons," Chief Torres explained. "She's being paid to destabilize military families and create custody disputes that generate legal fees for corrupt attorneys." The scope of Ashley's operation was far beyond anything we'd imagined. This wasn't just about my sister's jealousy or desire to control my pregnancy. She was part of an organized scheme to exploit military families during their most vulnerable moments. Connor stood up from the table, his decision made. "Gentlemen, ladies, it's time to end this operation permanently." Derek smiled, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like we were no longer playing defense. "Roger that, boss. Teams are standing by for your signal." As Connor's unit began implementing their response plan, I realized that Ashley had made a critical miscalculation. She'd assumed she was manipulating an isolated pregnant woman and her deployed husband. Instead, she'd declared war on an elite military unit trained to neutralize threats to national security. She was about to discover that when you target a SEAL's family, you don't just face one man, you face his entire brotherhood, armed with resources and training she couldn't even imagine. The counterattack was about to begin. Connor's counterattack launched at precisely 0600 hours the next morning. I watched from our living room window as 3 black SUVs positioned themselves around Ashley's apartment building while Connor coordinated the operation from our kitchen table, his laptop displaying multiple surveillance feeds. All teams in position. Target is awake and on her phone. Looks like she's making calls. Those calls were to her accomplices, frantically trying to coordinate damage control as her world began collapsing around her. But Connor's team had anticipated this response and was already 3 steps ahead. Lieutenant Commander Martinez had filed federal charges against Ashley and her network at dawn, citing conspiracy to defraud military families, identity theft, and violation of federal laws protecting service members. Chief Torres had simultaneously frozen Ashley's financial accounts and those of her co-conspirators, cutting off their ability to fund further operations. The first major blow came when FBI agents arrested 2 of Ashley's fake witnesses as they attempted to flee the state. The women who'd been paid to provide false testimony about Connor's alleged threats immediately agreed to cooperate in exchange for reduced charges. Their confessions exposed the entire network of lawyers, social workers, and court officials who'd been profiting from manufactured custody disputes.
Ashley's response was predictably desperate. She called my parents, my hospital, and even Connor's commanding officer, claiming that she was being persecuted by a dangerous military conspiracy for trying to protect her pregnant sister. But Connor's team had anticipated this too, briefing all relevant parties about the situation before Ashley could spin her narrative. By noon, social media platforms had suspended all of Ashley's accounts after Derek's cyber warfare specialists provided evidence of coordinated harassment campaigns against military families. Her lifestyle blog, which she'd launched using content from My Baby Shower, was taken down for violations of privacy laws and fraudulent business practices. The legal demolition was swift and comprehensive. Ashley's petition for the restraining order was dismissed when forensic analysis proved her evidence was fabricated. The CPS report was officially classified as malicious harassment, triggering an investigation into how she'd obtained confidential medical records. Her law license application, which I hadn't even known she had filed, was permanently rejected based on the fraud charges. But the most satisfying moment came when Derek called with news from the surveillance team. Boss, Target just got served with federal charges at her apartment. She's currently sitting on her front steps crying while FBI agents inventory her electronics. Connor allowed himself a small smile. Any resistance? Negative. Complete surrender. She asked if she could call her sister for help. Through our window, I could see one of the black SUVs pulling away from Ashley's building. The operation that had started with a destroyed baby shower ended with Ashley in federal custody, her criminal network dismantled, and her victims finally getting justice.
The other military families Ashley had targeted began coming forward once news of her arrest spread through base communities. Marine wife Jennifer Campbell drove down from North Carolina to thank us personally for stopping Ashley before she could complete her custody theft of Jennifer's twin daughters. Army spouse Maria Santos called from Fort Hood to report that Ashley's arrest had freed her from a fraudulent guardianship arrangement that had separated her from her son for 8 months. "You saved my family," Jennifer told me while holding her twins close. "I was so isolated and scared during my husband's deployment that I actually believed Ashley when she said I was an unfit mother. She almost convinced me to sign over custody voluntarily." Chief Torres's final report revealed the staggering scope of Ashley's operation. Over 3 years, she and her network had stolen custody of 12 children from military families, generated over $2 million in fraudulent legal fees, and left dozens of families traumatized and financially destroyed. The investigation expanded to include corrupt family court judges, social workers who'd been taking bribes, and lawyers who'd built their practices on manufactured custody disputes. Ashley's sentencing hearing took place 6 weeks later, 2 days after Sophia Grace Morrison made her healthy arrival into the world. Connor held our daughter while I provided victim impact testimony via video link from the hospital, describing how Ashley's campaign had nearly destroyed what should have been the most joyous time in our lives. "The defendant didn't just target my family," I testified, looking directly at Ashley through the camera. "She targeted every military family who dares to find happiness despite the challenges of service life. She exploited our sacrifices and used our vulnerabilities against us for profit." Ashley received 25 years in federal prison without possibility of parole, the maximum sentence under federal laws protecting military families. Her accomplices received sentences ranging from 5 to 15 years, and the corrupt officials who'd enabled her operation faced their own criminal charges. The judge's final statement captured what this case meant for military communities everywhere. The defendant targeted those who serve our country during their most vulnerable moments. This court will not tolerate systematic exploitation of military families, and this sentence serves notice that such crimes will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of federal law. As we left the courthouse with Sophia sleeping peacefully in Connor's arms, I realized that Ashley's attempt to steal my family had actually made us stronger. Connor's unit had become our extended family, the military community had rallied to protect us, and our daughter would grow up knowing that her parents had faced down a serious threat and emerged victorious. "She wanted to destroy our family," I said to Connor as we walked to our car. "Instead, she helped us discover how many people are willing to fight for us," he replied, adjusting Sophia's blanket against the cold Virginia wind.
Sometimes the greatest victories come not from avoiding conflict, but from standing up to those who would exploit your vulnerabilities and discovering that you're stronger than you ever imagined. 6 months after Ashley's sentencing, Connor and I hosted a proper celebration for Sophia at our home, a christening party that represented everything our original baby shower should have been. The guest list included Derek and his family, Lieutenant Commander Martinez, Chief Torres, Patricia, and all the friends Ashley had tried to exclude from our lives. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt the pure joy of celebrating my daughter without fear or anxiety clouding the moment. Sophia gurgled happily in Patricia's arms, wearing the original white christening gown that had been in Connor's family for 3 generations. The nursery we'd prepared with such love now housed our healthy, thriving daughter who would never know the chaos that had surrounded her arrival. The lavender walls Connor and I had painted together gleamed in the afternoon sunlight, finally serving their intended purpose as the backdrop for our family's peaceful moments. "She's got your determination and Connor's focus," Patricia observed, watching 6-month-old Sophia systematically demolish a teething toy with scientific precision. "This little girl is going to be unstoppable." The military community had embraced our family in ways that went far beyond duty or obligation. Derek's wife, Michelle, had become my closest friend, understanding the unique challenges of military spouse life in ways that Ashley never could have. Connor's unit treated Sophia like their collective niece, bringing toys from their deployments and teaching her to recognize their voices through video calls when they were overseas. During Connor's most recent 2-week training exercise, 3 different team members had stopped by daily to check on us, creating a support network Ashley's manipulation could never have penetrated. Dr. Harper had used our case to implement comprehensive new security protocols protecting military families' medical information. The changes included enhanced verification procedures for anyone requesting patient information, mandatory training for staff on recognizing manipulation tactics, and direct partnerships with base security offices to protect service members' privacy. Several other Navy bases had adopted similar measures after learning how Ashley had exploited vulnerabilities in the healthcare system to access confidential records.
Your experience led to policy changes that will protect thousands of other families, Dr. Harper told me during Sophia's 6-month checkup. Sometimes the worst situations create the most positive change. Your courage to speak up has had ripple effects across the entire military medical system. The FBI's investigation into Ashley's network continued expanding, reaching into family courts across multiple states. Agent Williams, who'd led the federal prosecution, kept us updated on the ongoing discoveries. The case had become a landmark prosecution, cited in legal journals and used to train federal agents on recognizing sophisticated schemes targeting military families. Chief Torres regularly spoke at conferences about the techniques Ashley's group had used, helping other investigators identify similar operations before they could destroy more families. "We've identified at least 37 similar operations across the country," Agent Williams explained during his latest update. "Your willingness to fight back broke open an entire criminal enterprise we didn't even know existed." The scope of Ashley's network had been staggering. Federal investigators had uncovered a sophisticated web of corrupt family court officials, unethical attorneys, fake social workers, and con artists like Ashley, who specialized in targeting military families during vulnerable moments. The operation had generated millions of dollars in fraudulent legal fees while destroying hundreds of families across multiple states. My parents had struggled to process the reality of what Ashley had done to our family and so many others. Dad visited regularly now, spending hours holding Sophia while apologizing for not recognizing the warning signs of Ashley's manipulative behavior throughout our childhood. His relationship with Connor had transformed from polite tolerance to genuine respect, bonded by their shared commitment to protecting our family from future threats. Mom found it harder to accept that her younger daughter had been capable of such calculated cruelty, but she'd started therapy to understand how she'd unknowingly enabled Ashley's behavior throughout our lives. The sessions were helping her recognize patterns of manipulation she'd been blind to for decades. "I kept making excuses for her because I thought that's what good mothers do," Mom admitted during one of our increasingly honest conversations. "I never realized I was teaching her that other people's boundaries didn't matter, that she could manipulate situations to get what she wanted without consequences."
Her therapist had helped her understand that protecting Ashley from accountability had actually prevented her from developing empathy and healthy relationship skills. Mom was learning to set boundaries with people who tried to manipulate her emotions, skills she wished she'd developed when Ashley was young enough to benefit from consistent consequences. The financial restitution from Ashley's seized assets had been distributed among her victims, allowing families to rebuild their lives after her devastating legal attacks. Jennifer Campbell had used her portion to start a nonprofit organization supporting military families facing fraudulent custody disputes, providing legal resources and emotional support that hadn't existed when Ashley targeted her family. Maria Santos returned to college, finally able to pursue the nursing degree Ashley's manufactured legal fees had forced her to abandon. Connor's perspective on the entire experience continued to surprise me with its military pragmatism mixed with deep emotional insight. Ashley made a fundamental tactical error, he explained while feeding Sophia her evening bottle. She assumed she was fighting a battle against individuals instead of an entire support network. She never understood that attacking one military family means attacking all of us. But more than that, she underestimated the power of authentic relationships versus manipulated ones. Our marriage had been strengthened by weathering such an intense crisis together. Connor's protective instincts and strategic thinking had saved our family, while my determination to seek justice had protected countless others. We'd learned to trust each other completely and to recognize that real strength comes from accepting help from people who genuinely care about your well-being rather than trying to handle everything alone. The experience had also taught us to trust our instincts about people who seemed too eager to insert themselves into our lives, or who consistently made us feel guilty for having boundaries. We developed a much clearer understanding of the difference between people who support you in becoming more yourself versus people who want to control you for their own purposes. Sophia's first word was "Dada," spoken while Connor was video calling from a training exercise in North Carolina. His teammates cheered in the background, celebrating this milestone as enthusiastically as any proud uncles. She would grow up surrounded by people who'd chosen to love our family, understanding that the strongest bonds aren't always biological, but are built on mutual respect, genuine care, and consistent support. "Do you think she'll ask about Ashley someday?" I asked Connor as we watched Sophia sleep in her crib, the same crib he'd built during those hopeful months before her chaotic arrival. "Probably. And we'll tell her the truth, that sometimes people make choices that put them outside the circle of family, but that real family protects each other no matter what. We'll teach her to recognize the difference between people who genuinely love her and people who want to use her for their own purposes." Looking at our daughter's peaceful face, I felt nothing but gratitude for the community that had rallied around us when we needed it most. Ashley had tried to isolate us and make us vulnerable, but instead she'd revealed the incredible strength of military families who refused to let anyone prey on their own. Our support network now extended far beyond what we'd ever imagined possible, creating a safety net that would protect Sophia throughout her childhood and beyond. The war was over.
But more importantly, we'd built something beautiful from the ashes of Ashley's destructive campaign. Sophia would grow up knowing that her parents had faced down a serious threat and emerged victorious, surrounded by people who proved that a chosen family can be stronger than blood relations. She would understand that courage means standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult, and that seeking justice isn't about revenge, but about protecting others from experiencing the same harm. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give your children isn't protection from every hardship, but the knowledge that when challenges arise, there are people who will stand with you and fight for what's right. That's the legacy we'd built for Sophia. Not just survival, but the certainty that she belongs to a community that values courage, justice, and protecting those who serve our country. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.